Good morning. It is day 3, and I'm a bit tired this morning. I was having 2 nights in a row of meetings till midnight back with North America. So this is the trade-off that I'm willing to make is a few tired mornings. Looking forward to my weekend here when I can relax a little bit more. And yesterday I still had a chance to do some great stuff during the day. I had to get a transit pass for the month. I was not able to do that on my phone, even though I can buy a weekly or a regular daily pass. I ended up going to the metro station and seeking assistance from the kiosk there. And they were great. Actually, the fellow was great. I was sort of expecting some bureaucracy, and there still was some, but he was very pleasant, very friendly. What I needed was a photo to be able to have it affixed to my monthly pass. So I asked where I would get a photo done. He said, well, there's a photo booth right there. And now I've noticed that pretty much every metro station has a photo booth, not for memories and souvenirs, but really just for the fact that your transit pass will require it. So I had the photo. He was able to cut it out, affix it, create my pass. So now I am carefree scanning across metro, train, bus, tram, whatever I need in the area across all zones. So that's going to make my month easier and not bad for dealing with French bureaucracy. It certainly could have been a lot worse. I didn't have to fill out any 12-page forms or anything like that. So I am good to go on being able to travel and wander around further. I also got to walk the main boulevard in this particular area, and it's just turned out to be a really great suburb to be in. It's Boulogne-Billancourt. I was wandering down the boulevard Jean Jaurès, and there's just store after store of just amazing looking stuff. There are a whole lot of clothing stores, and that would certainly reinforce, I think, the French sense of fashion. I felt somewhat unfashionable since arriving, so I'll probably have to do some of my own shopping for sure. And it just felt like a real neighborhood. People were dressed up, people were wandering, people of all ages. Older folks are definitely looking good and smart. And there's just kind of no schlepping around in jeans and sneakers and kind of worn out t-shirts. Everybody's putting an effort into their appearance, which I think is probably good and bad, but at this moment I'm certainly enjoying it. It was also not a mass-produced strip mall. It was a collection of buildings, buildings that have been here for 100 years, some of them. It was amazing looking food, whether that was baked goods or prepared salads in a window, anything like that. And it wasn't all high end either. There were certainly some discount stores. There are a few sneaker places that I think I want to go back and visit and have a look at. I was enjoying what was in their window and looking like they had some good sales. So I'm loving that neighborhood aspect of being here. And in an interesting way, it's Paris and not Paris. It is very much a Parisian vibe. The buildings look somewhat Parisian, but because I'm a little ways out, it's quieter. The buildings aren't quite as high. I would say there may be 4 or 5 stories along that main boulevard and main avenue. There are metro stations around. There's not a lot of honking. It's quite civil, and I'm enjoying that. Perhaps again, some of the culture contrast between being in Italy, where it just does feel a little bit chaotic. It's fantastic, but it does feel a little bit chaotic. Everything is well under control here, which is refreshing, and I'm absolutely enjoying it. Um, the other piece is really just around settling into the apartment. I get to unpack here, which is nice. Getting to do all of my laundry and get caught up on that, get some groceries, and just start to settle and start to feel like it sort of is my apartment. I'm also learning the geography of the neighborhood. That was part of my walk yesterday, and that's something that I love to do when I travel, and even more so over an extended period is you start to be able to make the connections in your brain of this street connects over to that one. And then you're less and less dependent on Google Maps. I'm probably still always going to be using Google Maps to figure out what metro station to take, what route to go, as if it's a new place in Paris that I haven't been before. But I like learning my neighborhood. I like understanding where the different streets are, where the different stores are. it gives me a sense of being able to settle in. And I think I'm also pretty adaptable that I can move around, have a good sense of direction. I'm lucky that way. And it just gives me a sense of really understanding where I am, feeling comfortable, but it's less about, I don't know, not feeling anxious and more just a sense of ownership. It really feels like I can settle in here, though I know I won't stay here forever. There's almost a sense of if this is where I live now, this is my neighborhood, these are the things around me, these are how the different streets connect. And I'm really enjoying that aspect. It is always one of my favorite things when I travel. And as I say, I've got a good sense of sort of geography and direction. And I could almost sketch for you several of the cities that I've been in as I start to make sense in my brain of how the different streets connect, what is parallel, what is intersecting. And those can be really important because you can also get turned around easily. And I've also had my moments this trip with Google Maps where it just didn't seem like it was keeping up for me. And I also couldn't tell, am I pointing in the direction or am I coming from the direction that you're trying to point me to? So I'm learning my landmarks, learning this store connects with that store. This is down the street. This metro station is down the street from that metro station. Whenever I get off at my metro station, oddly enough, there is the Jet Set Coiffure hair salon that I look for, and then I know which way I'm heading. I know which way back to the apartment. And it's fun. It's fun, and I absolutely enjoy that part of it. The other thing that I'm thinking about today is really when it's time to leave a job. And again, this whole journey represents leaving a corporate role, having the space to have this experience, making some decisions and finding the trade-offs of having late nights and still being able to enjoy a full month in the city of Paris. And it certainly feels a long way from the days when I was really not happy in my job at all. I don't know that you could see it. I think it certainly had moments of frustration, but I think to me the signs are there is a real dread that comes on Sunday mornings, Sunday evenings, or Monday mornings. I I think there can almost be a certain resentment that comes, and I know it's not for everybody. I know that not everybody hates their job, although some of the recent engagement statistics would say that most of us hate our jobs. The point becomes when is it enough that you need to move on? We all have bad days at work. Companies are inherently challenging places to work. You may have found that the bigger the company, sometimes the more challenging it is. It is hard to organize that many people, trying to always move across strategies, trying to reinvent, trying to flex, trying to move, trying to change, trying to transform, the overused verb that we use right now. And it can be draining. It can be really draining because most of us in leadership roles like getting results, like achieving things. We like to know that we're making the system better. We like to know that we're moving in a particular direction and we're doing it through others rather than direct deliverables for ourselves. And the bigger that portfolio gets, or the bigger your headcount or team gets, the more challenging that can become. It is really that analogy of the big ship turning around. And I think you can get to a certain point where you just don't have the patience for it, or the right pieces of the organization aren't aligned, or equally, if you're in a space or an organization where people aren't being held accountable, where you're doing your part, but others seem to get away with not really delivering on their commitment, you're never going to be able to move and deliver on the changes that you want to deliver on. This is certainly a contrast with the space of consulting. My job is to make recommendations, my job is to contribute, but ultimately, while I can produce specific results, my job is not to lead the change across. And there are pieces of change that I miss. I absolutely enjoy change and transformation, but it's also a weight off your shoulders to not have to own and not have to face day after day after day slow glacial change at a time when you know that you can get more done, that more should happen, that the organization is capable of achieving more. And so I think that can be part of it. I think, as they say, you never quit an organization, you quit a leader. And for me, I've always had really great leaders that I've reported into directly, but I'd say quite variable across executive teams and those that my leaders report into. And there have been definitely times in my career when I've left a role because it simply wasn't aligned with what the direction that the leadership was going, or the vision was missing. I've seen some very senior leaders mired and buried in operations and not stepping out and stepping up and moving into a space of clear strategy, of clear direction, of really trying to guide and help really create that vision, which is our job as leaders. If I can't see the vision of the leadership, of the executive team, where we're going, what we need to accomplish, how we're moving, how we're changing, and what will come out of it, the benefits of making that work change, I'm probably starting to tap out. I'm probably starting to lose interest and do my own thing. I may or may not be, achieving my deliverables again, depending on the level of accountability. And it just becomes a drag. And that can be another reason that you may be sitting unsatisfied in a leadership or a senior leadership position. Ultimately, I think it really becomes a combination of many factors. It is how well you're supported, how much you think you can really realistically get done in the organization that you're in, and our roles change over time. Our careers change over time. Certainly, early in our careers, we're very much out to get more training, to climb that corporate ladder, to take on new opportunities. It's fresh, it's challenging. But as we settle into more and more senior leadership roles, sometimes some of that challenge disappears and it becomes more of a trudge than it does exciting new possibilities. It becomes really, at times, babysitting. It can become a space of the same day over and over and over again. There are challenging moments, there are periods. Sometimes it can be fun and exciting if you're like me, and a little bit pressure prompting to know that a big milestone's coming or a big project or a big deliverable needs to get done and delivered on, and kind of all hands on deck. But at other times, sometimes that boredom comes because we kind of know what we're doing. We kind of know how it works. And we could also lose patience for new initiatives at times. I never wanted to be we've already done that, we've been there. And I have to confess, there were times towards the end that I was starting to be a bit pessimistic because I really did become one of those people who had been around long enough to know that it had been tried a few times before and wasn't successful. And again, that was just an indicator that I was no longer aligned with where the leadership team was going, and that it was probably time to go. So you'll need to reflect on what your reasons are. And as I say, no job is perfect. Even consulting is far from perfect. But know if your role is draining your energy. Know if there's more and more effort required to get into the car as you head off to work in the morning. If watching videos like this and understanding that the possibility exists of spending a month overseas, or spending more time with family or a nonprofit, or maybe it's woodworking or gardening or something like that. To me, it's not retirement. This is far, far from retirement, but this is an ability to have a whole lot more control. I was ready for more immediate feedback in terms of my effort, in terms of a much more entrepreneurial mindset. And when I first left, I didn't know that that existed. I think it was a very pleasant surprise around the ability to become almost anybody you want to become. If you start a business and decide that you're in the business of X, you don't actually need anybody's permission. You just need a market that's willing to buy. So know that you don't have to be in this position. And I get that there are a whole lot of reasons that you might be afraid, that sometimes status quo is easier than change. And we'll talk about those in some future episodes. But for now, it's morning. I'm up, and though I'm a little bit tired, it's time to go swipe my Metro Pass and do some exploring of the city. Bye for now.